Eren is the worst thing to debate about with Attack on Titan's ending. As an anime only, I just completed the series a few months ago, and afterwards I got the joy of reading a decade's worth of theories, debates, interpretations, and criticisms, and after a while I began to notice a few patterns. Which debates led to which conclusions, what was true and what was just misunderstood. But there's one thing that never came to a conclusion: Eren. No matter how many or which people have argued, especially the past 3 years, no debate ever leads to a real conclusion, only gridlock where beliefs stay the same. And with the ending, I've noticed the same thing. Complaints about the ending often include complaints about Eren, and when it comes to Eren, that's all people want to talk about. People who hate the ending often hinge their beliefs on Eren, and people who love the ending often hinge their beliefs on Eren. If you bring him up, you won't get anywhere, and that's all the comments will be filled with, even though Attack on Titan and the ending include so much more. So instead, partially because Eren is a topic I have very mixed views on, I'm going to talk about all the objectively provable problems with the ending that don't include Eren. I also want to say here that this isn't meant to be comprehensive, and that a lot of the accused problems that were left extremely vague or subjective, such as things like character motivations or beliefs, I will not be talking about here. This is probably the flaw I've seen discussed the least, even by attempts to cover everything in the final arc. After Zeke lost and the rumbling began, Yelena made it very clear that she has no reason to live other than to see it through and be validated, and that Zeke's euthanasia plan was right all along. So then, when Falco transforms to go see the rumbling as it's happening, what does she do? She stays on the boat and never shows up again, her character arc literally just being forgotten and uncompleted, and her choice being unexplainable and against her character. As a preface, the mechanics around the Ancient Titans are even now very vague and mostly unexplained, but from what we understand, they are essentially Titans from the past brought back to life by Ymir, and in-universe are supposed to just look like regular Titans, unlike the anime's depiction of them resembling hardening. That isn't necessarily a problem, I guess, but for me personally, it just feels very unanswered. We're basically just left to make our own headcanons about whether Eren summoned them or Ymir did, and whether it was just insane plot armor that protected the Alliance, or if there was some divine intervention from Ymir or whatever it was. And for the ones who are that is left unexplained as well. The audience just left to accept that happened somehow. The Ancient Titans and their battle I'm not going to be talking about though, outside of a few specific issues, for reasons I'll mention later. What this is about is this: Eren Kruger would never fight against the rumbling. Out of all the characters in the series, other than Flock, there is nobody who would be less likely to try and stop it than Kruger. Eren Kruger was willing to personally torture and murder hundreds of innocent people just for the chance of restoring the Eldian Empire, ending the cycle of hatred against his kind. So why would he fight against the rumbling when he was about to get what he wanted? No matter what way you try to spin character dialogue or motivations, Eren Kruger is the one character who cannot be spun in a way that would leave him opposed to the rumbling. I'll just let him speak for me for a second.
巨人でもっと早く暴れていればみんなも巨人にされずに済んだんじゃないのか。俺たちは何のためにここで巨人にされたんだ。どうした？急に顔色が。同胞だけじゃない。何千人ものユミルの民の指を切り落とし、ここで巨人にしてきた。女も子供もだ。全てはエルディアのためだったと信じてる。あの日、初めてお前と会った日、あんなことが起きなければ、お前はここまでマーレに強い憎しみを抱くことはなかっただろう。それが俺を選んだ理由か。それもある。敵国、父親、自分。お前の目に映る憎悪はこの世を焼き尽くさんとするばかりだった。かつては俺もそうだった。大陸にとどまった王家の残党は革命軍となり、父はその一員だった。しかし何も成し遂げることなく生きたまま焼かれた。幼かった俺はその様子を戸棚の隙間から見ていることしかできなかった。 それ以来マーレへの復讐とエルディアの復権を誓った。だが俺が実際にやったことは同胞の指を詰め、ここから蹴落とし巨人に変えることだ。それに徹した結果、今日まで正体を暴かれることはなかった。
And for the final problem with the Ancient Titans, there's that no other shifter in 2,000 years chose to fight against the Rumbling. It just so happened to be only the shifters we saw in the show, some of which, Eren Kruger, never even met Armin or Zeke, so the excuse that it could only be shifters they knew doesn't work. As well as there being that Zeke got his shifter before Reiner, Bertolt, or Annie, meaning he probably knew other shifters that we never even met. And the Marlene brainwashing of Eldians like they did to Reiner means there had to have been, at a minimum, dozens of shifters who fully supported the Marlene Empire. And even if this was done better and we saw tons of past shifters fight against the Rumbling, it wouldn't change that this had no real impact on the plot and was seemingly just some kind of nostalgia bait. Putting that all together, the lineup of past shifters makes no sense whatsoever story-wise with the characters here and is only understandable from an audience/fan perspective. Realizing that was where Isayama's priorities lied makes it much clearer how something like this even ended up in Attack on Titan. This flaw, compared to the last, is a pretty uncontroversial one, considering even most people who like the ending have some complaints with it. One of the things strongly established within Marley's world building was that they have done many experiments and tests with the Titans. Not only that, but this was most significant with the Beast Titan, who according to Marley history has very little usage in combat and is almost solely used for experiments. And ironically enough, in the same episode as Falco's Flying Titan reveal, it was revealed, or more accurately it was confirmed, that the female Titan's ability is to use parts of other Titans' abilities without having to eat them. So, what happens after all that? Falco is turned into a pure Titan with Zeke's spinal fluid, like how a bunch of other pure Titans have been made, and suddenly has full Beast Titan powers better than the actual shifter, with attributes of a completely arbitrary and random shifter from the past instead of Zeke's, trivializing the Beast power for obvious reasons, and the female Titan power that we just learned about because this implies all shifters can steal attributes the same way, as well as the infinite stamina and shifts Falco used to fly across the entire continent without even getting tired, also trivializing the Cart Titan. And I know some of you out there are going to point out that there was always some obvious foreshadowing for Falco becoming a bird, like look at his name after all, but frankly that doesn't change any of the problems it creates. Just giving out my own guess, I'd say this happened because Isayama had something planned that made sense within the story, like Zeke finding a way to transfer the beast power to Falco while he was stuck in paths, but for whatever reason he wasn't able to follow that path and had to force something into the story that just doesn't make sense. This extends to Season 4 Part 2 as well as the ending, but the revelations about the founding Titan powers and how they function create a lot of issues with how it was presented earlier. What we learned in Season 4 Part 2 was that the founding Titan power is just this: you tell Ymir to do something, she does it, that's it. The only caveat is that she only listens to those with royal blood because of the slave mindset that had been drilled into her for millennia. So what does this have to do with the past? Well, remember this?
グリシャは巨人の力を持つ者だった。彼が何者なのかはわからないが、目的はレイスケが持つある力を奪うこと。グリシャが求めるその力とは、フリーダの中に宿る巨人の力だった。フリーダの巨人は全ての巨人の頂点に立つ存在。いわば無敵の力を持つ巨人だった。だがそれを使いこなすにはまだ経験が足りなかったようだ。
Yeah, there's no explanation whatsoever for this other than the plot needed it. This criticism I know is mostly about Season 4 Part 2 rather than the ending, but I want to emphasize that because of the standard Isayama had built up earlier in the series, people really did not notice the problem here, and the ones who did simply thought it was part of the plan. The ending is what shattered this belief, so while it isn't the part of the series at fault for this, it definitely felt like that for many readers and viewers. Zeke was killed, stopping the rumbling and apparently cutting off Eren from Founding Titan powers. However, Zeke being killed should not have affected the rumbling whatsoever. The only reason royal blood matters is because Ymir would only listen to people with royal blood, and since she chose to refuse Zeke's command and go with Eren, the royal blood was no longer needed. That is all the royal blood connection is. So just to emphasize that a bit more, since Ymir made her own choice, then it would no longer be needed. That is plot hole number 1. The common and really only counter-argument people use against this is that Eren didn't actually lose Founding Titan powers or the rumbling and was just faking it, even though there's nothing that implies this and it's really just a headcanon to piece together something that doesn't make sense. Well, in the episodic release of the finale, which you may or may not know exists, there were added mid-episode cards, and for this one we got to be told the exact details of this. Here it is. A Doomsday Titan whose user turned into a Titan after losing most of the Doomsday body. Since it is the same size as a Colossal Titan and has the same head as the Doomsday Titan, it is thought that it at least has the abilities possessed by the Attack Titan. Even after losing the body, the royal blood and the rumbling, it still keeps going. The important bits here are those two main pieces of info. It is the same size as the Colossal Titan with the abilities of the Attack Titan, and has lost royal blood in the rumbling. It confirms that Eren lost royal blood and Founding Titan powers, and only has the powers of the Attack Titan, just in the body of the Colossal. Not that that even needed proof, but whatever. I haven't seen anyone else try this, but the semantics game of it says at least, meaning he could have more powers, doesn't work here. That's just how it most accurately is translated, and is not an intended alternate interpretation. So now that that's established, let's look at what happens next. Notice something wrong here. There's actually 2 more plot holes / retcons in this scene. Firstly, notice how the Titans instantly stopped when Zeke was killed. This is a direct contradiction to what was shown in Season 2, where Eren continued to use the Founding Titan power for at least 10 minutes after touching Dina, and keep in mind, he only had contact with her for like 1 second, and that connection continued to last even after Dina was dead, so there's just no way to headcanon a way out of this. It's a minor plot hole, but it's still worth mentioning. Secondly is the Wall Titans retcon. Since this is a whole separate flaw, I'm gonna make this come right after the rest of the Founding Titan plot holes. The TLDR is that they were retconned from big pure Titans to what is essentially just flesh dolls. Adding this all up, that is an astounding 3 plot holes, 2 arguably just being retcons instead, from this one scene. So, let's see what happens later. Oh right, Eren just uses the Founding Titan power anyways when talking to the Alliance / returning their memories at the very end in the Paths. And to add on to that even more, Mikasa's memory being altered and temporarily erased is a plot hole on top of that because she's an Ackerman and is supposed to be immune to memory manipulation. The first time the Wall Titans were shown, they were deliberately made to be conscious, only asleep because of the lack of sunlight. That was the entire point of Pastor Nick trying to get the Wall Titan covered up, and is the whole reason the Church of the Walls even existed in the first place. Most people forget, but the real reason behind them trying so vehemently to ensure the walls stay undamaged was to prevent the Titans within the walls from breaking out and destroying Parody Island, or even the entire planet. This is also the entire reason the warriors don't break the actual walls, instead breaking the gates to each wall. But now you might be saying, oh, but he must have been mistaken. The military, police, wall religion, and Marley must have had incorrect information. Except, we were directly shown the Titan beginning to wake up, clearly conscious as it began to look around and look down at the people below. The implication here being that the reason it didn't break out is that there simply was not enough sunlight for it to finish waking up. This implication aside, what we were shown still directly contradicts them just being dolls in the finale. The battle with the worm changed nothing in the story, and the justification for it in the first place did not make logical sense. And it was retconned. Just recapping what happened shows the problem here. Armin blows up Eren, where he then turns into a colossal titan-sized attack titan, and the worm goes flying off. Then, for some reason, the characters are all saying, we need to prevent the worm from getting to Eren or the rumbling could start again. He'll get the founding titan powers back. Like, what? Where did they get that from? If Zeke dying stopped the rumbling, Eren getting the worm back literally would not matter, since he had it after Zeke died anyways. They're not even supposed to know it has any power, since only the audience, Ymir, and maybe Eren and Zeke know about it. And then, to finally top it all off, he just uses the founding titan powers anyways at the end to do the memory shenanigans. And for a TLDR, Eren has Zeke in the worm, the rumbling is happening. Zeke dies, now it's Eren in the worm, and the rumbling instantly stops. So Eren in the worm, no royal blood, no rumbling. Worm gets taken off Eren, and suddenly they think the rumbling will start again if Eren gets the worm? That makes no sense, he literally just had it and there was no rumbling. When Eren started the rumbling, we clearly saw that the worm is completely separate from time and space, being able to arbitrarily change its size to whatever it wants and being outside of time. It changed size from being slightly larger than a human child, to being super long and thin to connect to Eren's head, and then changed to a conveniently Reiner-sized worm in the finale when trying to connect to the founding titan's head. When it first connected to Eren, we saw that time was literally paused for it, which it just didn't do in the finale for plot reasons. The argument that it needs founding titan powers to do that, which in itself doesn't make much sense, doesn't work because when it paused time it was not connected to Eren, the founding titan seemingly not yet activated, and anything the worm wants is higher on the hierarchy than what Ymir wants, so theoretically it should be able to do anything the titans do and more. Even if it can't, that still doesn't change how its behavior and choices were completely arbitrary in order to make its battle subplot work. This is, in my opinion, a huge problem that I've only seen parts of mentioned by various critics, never in a fully comprehensive way, even though it was something I picked up on immediately as I watched the finale and couldn't get out of my head. There are repeated instances where characters suddenly know or act upon information that only the author or audience are supposed to know, with no reasoning whatsoever besides just sloppy writing. And I want to make clear that I'm also including when they make choices and base plans around information they do not know. Almost all of this can be seen during the flight on the flying boat, when the Alliance was supposed to be coming up with its plan. Just going chronologically through this shows all the flaws. First we have this scene. We the audience know about Ymir rejecting Zeke, while the Alliance doesn't, so it makes sense that they would think that Eren would lose the founding titan powers if Zeke died. But they somehow quote-unquote guess that killing Zeke will also stop the rumbling. There's a lot of things wrong here. First of all, Levi is the one who came up with this idea, which I guess would be acceptable since he's sharp but not intellectually smart, so it'd be fine for him to think without thinking of the consequences of that plan. He also wasn't present when the Wall Titan was revealed. But then, Armin backs him up. He doesn't give any worry, talk about the possibility of the Titans going rogue, anything. And then, there's Levi's comment right after.
Oh no, no.
Hanj, who saw the Wall Titan get revealed, saw it start looking around and open its eyes, who was directly told by Pastor Nick about its danger of waking up, who knows more about Titans than anyone, thought the rumbling would stop if Zeke died. No, the Hanj we knew throughout the show would never think that. Mikasa also says nothing, and she saw the Titans start looking towards her, at least in the manga, and neither do the warriors, who were specifically instructed not to break the walls to prevent an uncontrolled rumbling. What does this mean? That there is only a single explanation for their behavior and thoughts in this scene, that it was all retconned. That is the only explanation that could make this scene logical. There is nothing else. The Titan waking up and everyone seeing it was retconned, Pastor Nick's interactions and entire scene with Hanj were retconned, and the warriors being instructed to avoid the walls was retconned, because otherwise, this makes no sense. They would never think this plan up unless someone from another plane of existence erased their memories of the story and correctly expected the audience not to remember. That was clearly a joke about Isayama, but I know someone out there will hear that and cope with Eren erasing their memories so his plan works or something ridiculous like that, so I'll quickly counter that Levi and Mikasa are both there and are Ackermans. Going back on topic, the point I was originally going for was that either a major amount of the story was retconned, or the whole scene is illogical nonsense that resulted from a highly stressed, rushing, forgetful author, so yeah, the options there really aren't great. The next piece of information that was transferred to them is knowing the founder could control shifters. This is kind of a weird one. The only hint we had before in the story that the founder could control shifters was right as the rumbling started, when Reiner's armor was unhardened. Besides that, there was no evidence whatsoever that the founder could control shifters or erase their memories, and if anything, there were implications of the opposite. If the founder could control shifters, then the attack titan always rejecting the self-righteousness of the king and resisting his will doesn't make any sense. Same as the king not knowing the attack titan has memories of the past, since shifters could just apparently have their memories tapped. What makes even less sense would be why Karl Fritz didn't just collect and eat all the shifters, besides the Warhammer, if a huge part of his ideology was having Eldians pay for their sins or whatever. If that was the case, then why did he just leave them to run around in the Eldian Empire and fight the Warhammer and Marlians? And the last piece of evidence is something that really should have been emphasized more in the story, that each shifter is supposedly a piece of Ymir, her being split into 9 different titans. If they're each different pieces of Ymir, then it would make sense for them to be immune from direct control or memory manipulation from the founder, and especially makes it more logical that the founder can just be an upgraded version of every shifter combined. At that point, besides the attack titan, why is their power even split into those 7 other titans? The founding titan already has everything they do, at least in the final episode. As individual criticisms, a lot of the things I mention in this video aren't too significant, but when you add them all up, what you get left with is an ending that is just page after page of bad writing. I'll let it scroll in the background while I talk. Future editor me here, copyright will destroy me if I do that, so I'll skip pages that don't have anything mentioned in the video. And keep in mind, like I said in the beginning, the goal of this video is to aim for the most objective criticism, and through that process of elimination I only let maybe 20% of the criticisms I have end up in this video. Yet that small amount is still more than enough for the ending to be undeniably bad. I was planning to make my own video about Armin and all of my problems with this character post time skip, but a little bit ago I found out that someone had already made a video close enough to what I would have wanted to make. I left a pretty long comment on the video with all my thoughts, so if you want to check Buzzbeel's video out, it should be in the description. It's worth the watch. You might be wondering why I didn't talk more about the atrocious plot armor and overall writing of the battle with the Ancient Titans, and the reason for that is the problems are so diverse and constant that it definitely requires its own video. I'm either going to make the video on it myself or link one that I find good enough in the pinned comment. That whole sequence alone was such a colossal disappointment for a series that otherwise does a great job at making realistic and well-written battles. Also, I wanted to make sure to thank Samuel Kim for his Pete cover music. Without it, this video would have been really dry. His channel and songs used should be in the description. If you liked the video, I'd really appreciate if you like or subscribe. The algorithm tends to not like videos critical of the ending, so I need all the boost I can get. Oh, and Mikasa teleported back to Paradis.